I don't know how many of you have already worked with Chef. Most of you, not everybody. And Vagrant, is that a well-known something? Yeah, so just can skip some parts a bit faster than some others. So good, the ingredients for testing Chef, that would be me, as this is a very biased talk. It's my opinion on how testing should go and why it doesn't work. Devops and Chef and clients, let me pass that on. So me, I work for I co-own a hosting business. We do managed hosting. So we have a lot of Chef recipes running our business, our infrastructure for our clients. I would say I am an 80% ops guy and then some dev on the sides, just doing some Chef recipes and so on. That's all you need to know about me. DevOps, it's a buzzword for now. It was in the introduction of my talk. Actually, on the ops side, it's just doing infrastructure as code. You should be thinking not in terms of machines, but you should manage it just like any other software project. All good. It's just sysadmins using Git and not using just some scripts on servers. So that's DevOps for me. I know many have different opinions on that. Chef, more important. Chef is what we will use for the people who don't know Chef or don't have that many insight in Chef. It is actually a system to deploy certain machines in a certain way. Formerly, you would have created a little shell script that just ran some commands one after another. Actually, Chef is about the same. It works with the recipes. In the recipe, you describe in a Chef language what the recipe should do. I'll give an example in a minute. And that's it. The recipes are bundled in cookbooks. Common names for a cookbook are like Apache or MySQL, which will contain like recipes for MySQL. Inside that cookbook, there might be 2 recipes, one for a server, one for the client side of MySQL. Not that special. How exactly Chef works isn't really that important either. You have 2 ways of running Chef. It's either doing it solo or in a hosted environment. Solo will just run Chef on a node, on a machine. It will take a couple of recipes, which you've put on the machine, like with secure copy or AirSync or whatever, you wrote them there, and then it will run the recipes. The hosted solution actually works with a central Chef server. It contains all the recipes, it contains all the nodes that it can and deploy recipes to. And then when you run on a certain node, your Chef command, it will contact the server, get the recipes, get all the attributes it needs, and then run actually the recipes on the node itself. Not that special. Today it will be mainly solo, as I will try to do some demonstrations, but none of them will work, I assume. As I don't have a server here somewhere located, I will do it with Chef solo, so it will not contact the central server, it will just run the cookbooks itself. This is actually an example of a recipe. This will be the example I will be basing all my tests on later on in the talk. So what does this say? It actually will install a package called Apache 2. So if you run this on like a Debian or an Ubuntu machine, it will do apt-get install, whatever. If it's a CentOS machine, it will do yum and all the needed features to get the package on the system. The second block, the service block, it actually says that, well, if we have a service Apache 2, enable it and start it. So enabling it, that means that it should run on boot time, meaning putting it in the run levels at correct places. Chef abstracts that all away for you. So that's quite nice to Chef. And then start it, yeah, of course, that's just running like service start Apache. I have one template here. It will actually replace a file on the system. It will replace the etc apache2 ports.conf file, and it will read a certain template called ports.erb. It's just plain ERB. You can use Ruby syntax in there. Not that special. You can see you can set owners group mode. There's a lot more than this to it. You can create users, mount points, a lot. Not that important. It's not about Chef that I'm going to talk. I'm going to talk about testing this. So as we are DevOps, this is a recipe we've created. If something, we had a certain vision in mind. Well, the vision was obviously to install Apache on a system. So when we change this recipe later on, and let's say 2 months from here we change this, we want to make sure that it still does what it was intended to do. So it should still install Apache. Fair enough, I think. So, why testing? Let's skip this. Ease of mind and avoiding regressions, of course. If you have some bug somewhere in a recipe, this is fairly easy. You can do complex if and while and for loops in all your recipes. So that's why we want to test. Just ease of mind. If you change some things, you don't want it to fail all over the place. Just to give an example, we at the office, we manage a couple of thousand servers, I think, and we have one recipe called base, which goes in every server. It sets up our base system, like installs like screen or something like that. It also configures the default mail client on the systems. So if anyone ever wants to change that, it would be nice to have a certain amount of certainty that everything will still work out fine, that each and every machine will still be able to send mails after the change was done. So that's why we want to test. So why testing recipes? Does it work as intended, and is the end result correct? The recipe might succeed completely, but it is actually not exactly the recipe that we want to test. It's the end result that matters. We need the Apache server working there. Install me an Apache web server. That's what the recipe should do. We need to see if the Apache web server is actually on the system. So 6 months ago, I ventured off into testing chef recipes. First stop, of course, Google. What did you find? What did I find actually on testing chef recipes on Google? The first thing you see popping up all over the place is Food Critic. It's a gem. You can install it. It's just gem install Food Critic. Actually, that's not testing. It's a lint tool, so it will validate your coding style against a certain set of rules. These rules are all documented here. Not that special. It doesn't actually even catch like syntax errors in your packages. It's a set of regular expressions thrown at your recipe, and if they all match and none of them fail, then you will get an OK. Not that special. I don't think that's real testing. So I'll skip this. It's the cherry on the cake. If you have a couple of recipes, you can use it. You can skip some tests. It's a certain coding style. If you want to stick to this, use it. Otherwise, don't. I think they mimic the coding style of the Ops Code cookbooks. So the creators of Chef, they also have cookbooks. They have a certain style. I think it mimics this style quite closely. Second thing that you might encounter is ArrrrCamp Chef. Sounds good, ArrrrCamp. Well known for testing in the Ruby world. One of the cornerstones of testing, I think. So if there is an ArrrrCamp Chef, it should be quite good. Actually, the last commit on the project was 9 months ago, which is quite long in testing with Chef history. I tried it yesterday. It didn't work. I had to patch it, as it doesn't work well together with the latest versions of Chef. Just loads Chef and it tries to initialize it with the incorrect amount of parameters. And in the end, I never got it running. It just doesn't work. Even with the patches, maybe my patch was wrong, but it was a one-line patch. Didn't really do that much. It promises that you can do something like this. That's just ArrrrCamp here. Is this readable? Yeah, can't change this font color. It's a screenshot. You just require it, and then yeah, some describing and some. It should do this. It should do that. So we say here Apache. It should install Apache. So and it should contain package Apache 2. That's it. Then another one. It should have the port file changed. Well, So if I pass on attributes here at the bottom with the port type, port 8080, I had that little template there that was created. It will actually change the port normally. It should contain the template ports. I assume it also has some matches to check for the content. It's default RSpec, so I think all of those would copy over or get available. But in the end, I kept getting errors about it complaining not finding my cookbooks. Dived into the gem, didn't really find why it didn't find my cookbooks. It looked like it looks on the correct place to find my cookbooks, but keeps complaining it doesn't find them. Now, no problem. I tested this a couple of days ago, actually for the first time. There is another gem that actually is better at exactly doing the same thing. It's chef spec, and this one is one that works. It's actually very highly maintained. It had commits like last week. What does it do? It doesn't really do a real run of chef in the background. It will take your recipes, it will mimic a run, and then you can see if it did certain things. It somehow feels strange. So this is actually, let me see if I can get this in my how did I call it? It's on the master, correct. So it should be here. If I take these specs, so this is the spec that you actually write. So it let the chevron be a chevron new and converge a certain cookbook. So the default cookbook here is converged. And then you can do, well, this actually feels and looks a lot like the previous one. It's just a bit different. It asks it on the chevron here, but that's just how it is scoped. So we can say it should create, like example, this file with a certain content. It should say listen 80. I didn't change in this spec, I didn't change the port, so that should be okay. And so on, and so on. And then we can normally run this, so that would be like chef cookbooks, and then ars, Apache, RSpec. Just a moment, there we go, 4 tests. 0 failures. So what did it do in the background? It did actually take the recipe, it pushed it through chef with a fake run. It actually replaces all the, as I looked at the gem, this is how I see it doing this. It actually takes out all the methods itself and it replaces them with method missing, and the method missing will then capture what is happening, and so it can see which calls on which actions have been done. Looks nice, but actually I don't think this is the real testing we need as you are testing chef. You say chef package. In my recipe I say package Apache. I do hope that chef somehow tests that package Apache actually installs a package called Apache, and it should work. So it's just, hey, if I do install this package, will it actually call install the package? Seems like a waste of time to me. So let's go on. It does support quite a lot of mocking, and you can actually mock out like the searching for other nodes, so this is quite complete. This I have shown this also. It also is quite hard to work with nested attributes. Normally you push in some JSON with all your attributes. It's quite hard. You have to create hashes and hashes and hashes. Might be my only 20% of devs that is getting in my way here, but I didn't really find an easy solution there. And also, not all the system attributes are available. So if you run chef on a system, you get some information for free, like it's a 46-bit system, it's running this and that kernel. And you can query that and use it to make certain decisions, like we will install this version on a 46-bit system, and another version on a 32. You can query the amount of memory and so on. All these variables, except a couple, are missing. So if your recipe depends on that, you have to provide them all yourself, which I don't like. So stop right here. What do we have? If I ask Chef to install a package, will it call the package resource? Yeah, that's testing Chef. It is not testing if actually the package got onto the system correctly and my server is running. So, and that's actually what we want to do. So if I have a client set up some amount of nodes and I do my Chef runs on it, it should actually provide the service I need. If that's a web server, it should, well, listen on port 80, and if I hit it, I should get a reply. So I don't want to test if package installs package. I just want to test the end result. Step one is, given I have a machine, so we will have to move these tests away from just running some fake test runs, and we will have to move them to running actual, real Chef runs on machines. So it will be spinning up a machine and then applying the roles and then asserting if everything is okay, and then just throw away the box. Here I use Vagrant. Almost everybody of you is familiar with Vagrant. It's a Ruby gem that wraps around VirtualBox. It works with the kind of base boxes, which are default sane sets of a basic install of a system. Most base boxes come like with a minimal install and then just Chef and the needed gems for Chef on the system. It has pretty solid integration with Chef. You can actually, from Vagrant, ask it to reprovision your machine, so it will rerun your tests. You don't have to go into the machine. And it can either work with solo or also with the central server. A bit harder, but that's it. Vagrant I will use in a minute, so we will see how this works. It's actually like a VirtualBox machine, but then easier. So once we have this machine, we might want to test what happens. So we run a certain recipe, and in the end we want to know if everything works. Now, let's take this back a step, and before we actually run the test, the latest Chef, it was announced somewhere late August, has a Y-run feature. And it will tell you what it should do, or what it would do, but it will not actually do it on the system. It's like a dry run something. Now, quite easy. If you didn't run your Chef like a couple of weeks on a certain machine, and you need it, and it doesn't run continuous, you run it first with a Y-run, and then it would say you what exactly would change. No, this isn't 100% correct. Say that in one step you create a file, and in a second step you check if the file is there and then do some action. Well, the first step will actually not create a file, which will make the second step, of course, do the opposite of what you would think. But that's, yeah, I don't know how they can mock that out. Just doesn't work. Very handy. It's a new feature in the latest Chef releases. Another great thing is the Minitest Chef handler. Chef works with handlers. You can add a handler to a run. It will do something at the end of it or in the beginning. Actually, what this will do, it will run some tests on the machine where the recipe was applied, still in the context of the run. So you still have access to all the nodes and the attributes and everything that was changed. You still have access to all the resources, and you can test those resources and query them and see if everything works. You can also query the machine itself as it is running on a machine. So you can actually say, this Apache 2 server, is it actually really running there? Not, is it installed and asked to start, but is it actually running? So let's see if I can demonstrate this quickly. So I have a Vagrant running here normally. Vagrant status. Let's see if it is running. My Minitest is running. Vagrant SSH. So let's get into that machine. So here I can normally do, I will do it manually as it, there is a little change needed. Let's do this quickly. No, this one should be in, but let me copy this. So Vagrant works from this directory. VI solo. So this isn't in. So if I actually run this chevron here, so solo, if I run it, it will actually apply my recipes, and then in the end it will run the tests that I defined inside my mini-tests. So let's have a look at the tests I defined. Not here. That would be these. So it should install, and here the must be installed will actually do a query on the system, like with dpkg query -w. You can see actually is this package on the system. The same with the file. It must exist and it must match a certain value. And here I can use the node Apache port. I don't have to pass that in like through some odd way. And so on. So it's not that hard. Here in the end you will see the tests have finished correctly. If you have failures, they just pop up over there. It's not that special. So that's mini-test chef handler. That's already a step in the good direction, actually. It will allow me to actually test the final state of my machine. And that's actually what is important. Is it working like it should be? Let me check my time. I don't even know till when I have. Okay, let's go on. So these tests run in the end. But this actually wasn't really exactly what I was looking for. I actually wanted something like the Cucumber system. So you could write in plain English what you actually want the system to do. First thing that pops up is some salads about cucumber salads if you query chef and cucumber. If you put ops code with it, you get this cucumber chef. It's actually a quite vivid project. It has a book published and everything with it. It only has a certain disadvantage. Well, two of them. It only runs on EC2 and it only works if you use the ops code hosted chef, which I don't do both. So I skipped this quite fast. Then I said, well, wake up that 20% and do it yourself. Food taster, you won't find that anywhere on the internet. That's my own private go at this. And I took Cucumber, I took Vagrant, I tried to intermingle those. I used Sahara for snapshotting, as always rerunning all kinds of recipes is time consuming. So if you can snapshot your virtual machine as you go, you can return to the best snapshots suited to get somewhere. And then the Cucumber steps of Aruba I took, but there are plenty of more you can use. It's just I quickly whipped it together and actually got recipes like these going. So when the role lamp is applied, there should be a process Apache, there should be a process PHP 5, FPM, and so on. So that was a far stab at this. The code I currently have doesn't work anymore. I wrecked it beyond repair, apparently. I might try to fix it up later. But this actually did work, and this is actually what I want. So why did I wreck my code? Just to make it better, but that doesn't work. The basic problem here is Vagrant needs a certain old version of JSON, and Cucumber needs a certain new version of JSON. And I wanted to integrate everything into each other, and that failed a bit. So 50% of my time was really reading and fiddling with Vagrant. The gem is like uber complex. I looked at it and I felt really dumb. 20% waiting for a VirtualBox. I also made some wrapper around my instances then, as I also want to test multi-node setups. So if you have like a load balanced setup, you want to have 2 backends and a load balancer, then you need 3 nodes. So you need to be able to manage 3 nodes. So I had a box collection, which was then the 3 nodes, and then 5% tying it all together. Yeah, the 5 other % was in a flame war on Chef about Cucumber versus RSpec. If you ever need a Cucumber recipe translated to RSpec, there is a guy over there that does it for free, just to prove his point. It's quite handy. So then somebody pointed me to Toft. It doesn't use Vagrant. It uses the Linux LXC containers. It's a sort of lightweight, over-optimized shrouding of a system. It spins up machines in a matter of seconds and tears them down again. You can do chevrons on them. This is actually quite close to what I want. The Vagrant way is way too slow. I don't want the Vagrant way, I want this way. Didn't test it yet. It's on my to-do list to test this. And then there is Test Kitchen. Test Kitchen is the answer to testing that Opscode gave us. Together with the Y-Run feature and the gem in the release, there was a gem released called Test Kitchen, and what this actually does, it actually assembles everything I already talked about. It does the food critic stuff, it does the mini tests, it does some sort of the Cucumber feature lists. It does it for all kinds of platforms, so it will run your tests on Ubuntu, on CentOS, on whatever you would specify. It will run on different versions of Ruby even. You can even test different versions of Ruby. I should have this going, so just a moment. So that's Test Kitchen. Let's clear this. There. So this works from Chef cookbooks, Apache, and I think it's here kitchen test. Okay, one problem pops already up. Well, not that error. I think it's an no. Typical. So Apache should run it from the cookbook itself normally. Which one is this? Oh, okay. Expand. Yeah. Let's try this again. Some encoding stuff. So Debian, it doesn't know Debian for a start, but that's just some base boxes that are missing, so I can fill this in quite easily. It will know I have defined in my tests for Test Kitchen. I will let this run. It will actually do quite a lot. If you have the test, you have the kitchen here, and then you have a kitchen file, and I say I have a configuration default that will just run the default recipe. I also have some features here. So this feature, given a test page named test is installed in the document root, when I get / on the local host, I should get a certain result. So it will also run this. I also have my mini tests normally running, just a moment, still running. So it actually assembles everything. It also does the lint. This is quite good. It also has certain problems. It's slow, for one. Here you see it tests against Ubuntu 10. Later on it will take Ubuntu 12 and test it also against Ubuntu 12. So that's quite good, actually. It should, yeah, okay. Apt-get update on this internet line. Let's skip over to somewhere else. You can actually also create certain recipes in your test kitchen to set up your environment to do the tests. Like if you have the MySQL cookbook, you might want to load certain data and create certain databases into your MySQL before you're doing the tests. So that's all there. Very good. There are a couple of problems here, however. One of the problems is that it is very much tied to one single cookbook. And most of the time you want to actually like test the LAMP role, so Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. It should actually be able to serve up a WordPress or a Drupal site. That should be tested and not, well, it should also test single recipes, but not, it doesn't provide any means of testing complete setups. The Chef metadata file, I didn't know where to put that slide, but it actually contains quite a lot of information. Test Kitchen uses the metadata file to see what platforms it should run. So there you say supports Ubuntu, and then it will test against Ubuntu. If you say supports CentOS, it will actually start testing also against CentOS. You can add others. There's plenty of more information there that Test Kitchen could use. You normally describe your recipes also in your metadata. You describe your attributes. It could take all that information and actually use it in tests. How exactly is to be seen, is to be made up by the Test Kitchen developers. So then, still not enough. This is not what I want. I actually have a Chef server in the office with all my configurations, all my nodes, all my roles, all my attributes for those. I have all the recipes somewhere in a repository. And I want to combine that. And if I do a commit, it should actually take all my configurations that are currently live. It can spin them all up using some virtual instances somewhere, parallel to my live deployments. It has the environments for all my clients. It can actually set up my client's systems, and then it has all the information. It should actually run all the scenarios that exist in that way. That's what I think it should do. Ideal scenario here would be me committing to, well, pushing actually to something and then magic. And then I would get some message somewhere saying, well, your recipe change didn't break anything. So we can merge like the master branch to the stable branch or whatever and carry on. And actually I think all the ingredients are there. We have either Cucumber or RSpec. It's up to whomever is working on this to decide this. We have good testing frameworks. We have like Vagrant, but also there is the Fog Gem, which actually allows to control certain cloud instances. Like if you have a VMware-based or a Xen-based setup, you can actually control it with Fog. Chef servers are running. It's easy to set up a new one. It can be that hard to just dump all the data from the live system and import it somehow, either filtered or just exactly the same data in some test Chef server. There is something like Librarian, which will look for the dependencies of the cookbooks. Like the cookbook of MySQL depends on the cookbook base. It knows that if base changes, it will influence the MySQL cookbook, and it should test it. It will not influence like the Apache cookbook, so that shouldn't be tested. So we can actually narrow down which tests to run. And then, of course, the CI server to wrap it all up, assemble the assertion results, and then show it all in a nice page. So actually all the ingredients are there. But yeah, I really want infrastructure testing. And high level, fully automated, and it should be magic. And actually that doesn't exist yet, as far as I know. So I want to have this, but I don't have the clue or the time to do it all myself. So I hope that actually the community will come up with something along the way. I am really following this very closely. I will try to do my part in it, but it's actually a long way. And I see with the Puppet people also, Puppet is like the counterpart of Chef, they actually have quite exactly the same problem. So should be doable to whip this up. And I think we are making steps and progress towards that, but it still isn't there yet. So all the testing is currently focused on recipes and not actually what the end result of applying a recipe actually is. And actually that's my talk, as I don't have a conclusion, as what I want isn't actually there. I must say that I will use the main handler, certainly, as it will give me some method of testing. After a certain run has been done on a certain node, you can make quite a couple of small assumptions, like, is my web server still running after my run? Is it still serving up normal pages and not 404s or 501s or something like that? Is a certain mount done? So all these little tests can actually be done, and those will be good. All the other stuff, I don't know if I will be using it. Test Kitchen maybe, if actually it would fully work as the Nagios features, the Cucumber feature list. Actually, I never got it working, and I asked on the Chef channel on IRC if anyone could help me with Test Kitchen, and it was very quiet after that. So that's all very new to them also. So that's it. Any questions? Yeah.
So what are you using on a day-to-day basis then? Just
Nothing. Spinning up vagrants, applying them myself, and if I have to do it in production. We actually don't run continuous Chef in production on many systems just because we are too afraid of the mistakes we can make and everything blowing up into our face. So we actually, the Y-run feature is very good for us now, as it sometimes happens that a certain setup wasn't touched for like 2 months. Then you can, while the recipes that it depends on actually evolved further, we can see what it would do fairly close. And then that gives already a bit of a hint of it will fail or not. That's all we do.
a lot of labor for managing like thousands.
Yeah, and it's all different setups for different clients. Yeah, I got a bit of automation in it. I can easily spin up certain machines and setups, but it is hard. It's time consuming, and that's why I want infrastructure testing.
I would say one thing stronger than what you said, because I have the exact same goal with the last night, in that not only do I want real behavior-driven testing, in that so you upgrade your Chef, or so your Apache recipe from a minor version.
Yeah.
I don't only want to check that I'm now still serving web pages because that's important, but I also want to hit head and make sure I got look at the headers and make sure I'm actually running the new version that I think I'm running. That
would be up to you. If you have like the external Cucumber tests, then it's just up to you to make the correct step to query the correct things you want to test. I would be happy if it shows a page.
Some of the tools also aren't there yet, like wrapping up maybe LSOF to make sure certain things on the backside are bound, and make sure name types are written by certain users. Because when you're just doing LAN, when you simplify, there's a certain set of constraints, but when you add on like big data technology like Hadoop and things, you have more constraints that get more and more complicated, and you really need to test them at an even lower level.
Yeah.
So we need this, and then even deeper, so we can actually hit the bare iron.
We only have like 10% of what we need to do actual good testing and Chef and automated deployment and Devops testing, whatever.
And we do continuous Chef, and it does totally horribly blow up once in a while in awful ways.
Yeah, we run it on like 10% of our machines. And that's just machines that aren't that important. So if those fail, there are backups somewhere that will take over, and that's it. So, question?
So with this mini test example, is it possible to take it one step further and actually have some kind of automatic rollback, for example, with an Apache upgrade, so that if the test fails, that it rolls back to...
That would be a nice addition, actually. Like having a reverse recipe. Like if you have Rails projects, you have the migrations, like see each run as a migration, and then you would need a migrate back way. Excuse me? Yeah, well, you can snapshot your machine and then run it, and if it fails, go back to the snapshot. If you have like moving data all the time, going back to a snapshot of even a couple of seconds ago isn't always that feasible. So it's quite.
If you have 1,000 servers, like you say, then it's not really, you get like 50 servers that have an error in them because.
Then we have a lot of phone calls.
You should test before you're pushed to.
Yeah.
You never break production. Just like you run your testing thing right on the code, right?
But there are so many variables on
Yeah. All right. Another question? Yeah, well, in the end, a CI server, continuous integration, Travis, Jenkins, whatever, anything that just runs when something change, guard. Yeah, I've encountered some efforts, and you see, like in the output, there is like, yeah, here goes nothing, and then they try to spin up with some shell script a couple of vagrant boxes, and then in the end it just echoes out, hope everything is okay, and all the other stuff goes on the boxes that might have been installed. That doesn't really feel that comfortable to me. So I would have liked this a bit better tight. Okay, I think I'll have to end here, as I'm 2 minutes overdue. So thank you.